Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you again to Moses and Singer for an incredible presentation. And up next, we have another partner of the HitLab Innovators Summit, Moderncraft by Moss. As you might have noticed, are also the virtual networking event sponsors. And we're very pleased to be welcoming them to the stage right now. Powered by South Asia's largest apparel tech manufacturing company, MAS Holdings, Moderncraft by Moss aims to be the smart, soft goods partner of choice that helps to design and build products that improve health outcomes and drives greater usage of medical devices and wearables. Moderncraft is currently the world's largest soft wearable technology producer, and you can visit moderncraft.io for more information. We are very excited to welcome a panel including Don Jones. Donald Jones is joining us again after his session yesterday as part of the Innovator Showcase. He is a globally recognized leader in digital medicine, digital therapeutics, technology-enabled health services, and virtual clinic business models. We're also excited to welcome Tiasha Renganathan, having Tiasha joined MAS Intimates in 2009 and is now approaching her 10-year milestone with the company. We're also very excited to welcome Quentin Soulet de Brugiere, co-founder and CEO of DREEM, that's DREEM with 2 E's, and Vishwa Althuge. Vishwa is the member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of the UK and a certified Prince 2 project management professional. He is also going to be joining our panel. And lastly, I'd like to welcome Stan Kachnowski, the chairman and HitLab, as well as the director of the Columbia Business School Digital Health Strategy Program. Please join me in welcoming this exceptional panel.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. And very, very happy to have just a tremendous panel here to talk about one of the more important digital health trends that we've seen develop over the last couple of years, and now really seeing it accelerate this year with the virtualization of care globally, and expecting that this convergence of virtual care and virtual technologies and the improvements of everything from the circuitry, smaller, better, faster, cheaper, as well as the telemetry, the storage, the chips involved. We're just seeing an extraordinarily new level of innovation that we haven't seen before. And I think when you begin to look at how innovations come together and meet up with teams that understand how to process these innovations, how to source them, how to evaluate them, how to build them and revise them toward a marketplace, and then eventually scale them. There's no better world leader than Moderncraft by Moss. I think it's just wonderful to have you all here today, and it'd be great to kick off with just a little bit of backgrounds from your own words and from yourselves. Let's dive in for a quick second. I'm just going to go down my Zoom screen here in front of me. So this is this is simply intro by Zoom, if you will. So I'll start with Don, who almost needs no introduction, but Don, maybe 2 minutes about your background for the audience.
Hi, Don Jones. Nice to be here. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at the Scripps Research Translational Institute with Eric Topol. I also have a advisory and board member practice with companies around the world. I've built a couple national footprint healthcare companies, American Medical Response, which is the world's largest emergency medical services company, MCare, which is the largest medical group in the United States, and MA, which is the largest private practice in Mexico. And then I spent 11 and a half years at Qualcomm, where I built out Qualcomm's digital health division. And Stan, thank you for inviting me.
No, my pleasure. And you know, Don's being humble when he says he built out Qualcomm's digital health division. You know, he was really one of the folks there early in the 2000s to help create that wireless life science and healthcare ecosystem that eventually Dr. Topol wrote about in his Creative Destruction of Medicine. And it was really a lot of the work that Don and the Qualcomm team and others around there put together, that when Eric came down from Cleveland Clinic and saw this vast amount of data being collected wirelessly through Qualcomm's work and Don's work there, that's where he began to realize that, okay, all this work I'm doing in bioinformatics, it has a whole other universe, and putting it together with the wireless and the real world data is this thing that we should call digital medicine. And just an extraordinary piece of work done. I'm really glad to have you here today, and I much appreciate it. And again, just going down the Zoom list, Quentin, if you could also provide just a couple of minutes about your background to give the audience a little bit more idea of where you come from and your journey.
Of course, thank you. So my name is Quentin Brugiere. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DREEM. I've got a technical background, so I've been trained in applied mathematics, chemistry, and computer science. And over the last 6 years, I've been trying to merge advanced technology and neuroscience to develop tools both to diagnose sleep at scale and to improve sleep at scale, and to make this device available to as many people as possible. And thanks a lot for inviting me today.
Wonderful, wonderful to have you here. And again, for people that aren't familiar with DREEM, again, like Justin said, spelled with 2 E's. Please look them up. When it comes to sleep technologies, they're world-class and out in front of the pack. And certainly, really, really glad to have Tiasha here as well. One of the leaders of what's going on right now in bringing a lot of these technologies to market. And Tiasha, again, if you could give us a little bit of background on yourself and as well as Moderncraft.
Sure, Stan, thank you. So I come from sort of an economics background, and from a professional point of view, I'm very much MAS born and grown, so to speak. My experience really revolves around the strategy, investment, and commercialization sphere. I've also spent some time out in Silicon Valley, really focused on building out partnerships in the consumer technology space. Currently really focused on building out a new business vertical for MAS in the wearable technology space as it intersects with soft goods.
Fantastic. And Vishwa as well, if you could give us a little bit of background on yourself and all the good work you're doing there as well.
Yep. So I have a software engineering background and mathematics. That was my education, but I've also been part of MAS for a really long period of time, working on everything from front-end operations, manufacturing to product development. I've been part of the MAS Innovations group since inception of the group, and I have worked with our small startup, virtual startup-like teams at MAS in bringing product to market. And then transition with Tiasha into the Moderncraft team, and I now look after product for Moderncraft.
And I think that's fundamentally, when the audience is thinking about how this all comes together, that's an absolutely cornerstone of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I'd love to start out a little bit on the, really from the subject matter side of this, Don, and give us a picture of, what is happening here within this this wearable space, and what kind of opportunities, from your background of having created market-leading companies, what gets you excited about the opportunities here?
Great. Well, thank you, Stan. And before I even start diving in here on the wearable technologies, I'll just share some of my observations about MAS. I like to describe them as a manufacturer that has Toyota production capabilities and German engineering. They're not what you would normally think of in terms of an apparel manufacturer. They're much more, and we've got extensive experience represented here in electronics and sensors, and material science. So keep that in mind as you think about the different applications that that are evolving in wearable technologies. Next slide, please. So the biggest trend that's pushing wearable technologies along is the same trend that we've all experienced in computer technology. And that is that we've moved from computers that were central to the office to computers in our homes to computers in our hands. And now we're going to talk about computers on our bodies in terms of wearable components. And this is all being driven by pushing more and more of the cost and care management involved in healthcare out to the edge, out to the consumer, out to the patient, making things less expensive and more convenient. Next slide, please. This is matched by a tremendous growth in the number of sensors, medically researched and validated sensors that can be miniaturized and placed in wearables of all kinds. And there's almost an unlimited list of sensors now that historically have been placed in devices that are found in doctors' offices and hospitals, but now can be placed in the home, in and around the body, and on wearables. Thank you. Next slide. Which is then leading us to create the Internet of Medical Things, just like IoT, that we now have an Internet of Medical Things. I'll show you some of the examples. Go ahead, next slide. One of the largest components that's on the internet are CPAP machines, which are therapeutic machines. They can be used for some diagnostic capabilities, but they're therapy. They have a wearable component in the form of a headgear that is worn. That headgear has a variety of material elements to it. But between the two largest manufacturers, Philips and ResMed globally, there are over 40 million connected, cell phone connected CPAP machines distributed in the world that are sending data back home to the mothership, so to speak, and to apps carried by the patients and information to physicians from just these two categories of devices by two manufacturers alone. And there's many, many more. So connected medical devices in this one in the form of a wearable are not new. They've been around for some time. And we're now seeing patches evolve, which are you can think of them as smart band-aids or disposable peel and stick sensors, but in the form factor of something that can be worn directly on the body. These are getting quite elaborate. Some of them have as many as 8 to 10 different sensors baked in, along with the power management and radio management. And they can perform any number of different diagnostic and therapy management kinds of functions. I've used them personally as part of a trial in Sierra Leone, where we tested patients exposed to Ebola to figure out when they would decompensate. And we were using some fairly sophisticated algorithms, and we were able to, using these patches, which allowed the healthcare workers not to come in contact with the patients, which is important, obviously, in a virus situation. And we were able to get 9.5 days of pre-symptom notification using patch-based technology. Next slide. Even the pharmaceutical industry is moving into the wearable space, a lot pushed by needing to collect data in order to justify their pricing by basically collecting data related to outcomes and success using the drug. Next slide. This is just one. It's actually a wearable because it's meant to be a drug carried in your pocket. These are inhaled drugs. Teva has 3 different drugs that are in inhalers that are connected to apps. These drugs are in the asthma space, both as rescue drugs and as therapeutic drugs. And interestingly enough, have a very interesting sensor, a negative pressure sensor in them, so that the inhaler can actually measure the actual amount of drug inhaled into the lungs. It's the first time it's ever been available to actually measure the actual dosage that the patient has actually dosed themselves. But this is a different form of a wearable, because this is a wearable meant to be carried basically 24/7 by the patient. Next slide. So if we think about what's going on in the world, today we have consumers around the world going to Google and asking 1 billion times a day something about their healthcare. And really what they're really asking is, I've got a question and or a problem, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And so a lot of the solutions are trying to provide answers to the what do I do next question. Next slide. It's important to keep these concepts in mind. Most hospitals sell interventions. Most physicians sell opinions. I'm excluding surgeons out of here, but they just sell opinions. Most consumers are actually looking for a total solution. They're not looking for an opinion or a single intervention. They'd like to have one-stop shopping where the problem that they're trying to address, the answer to the question of what to do next, is contained in a single solution. And a lot of the wearable solutions are helping to provide diagnostic and therapeutic and chronic care management solutions that look more like solutions and less like opinions and single point interventions. Next slide. So medicine is it's quickly changing also as we're starting to see virtual first medical practices come on board. Here's a big one put together by Wearable, which is Google's life science division, and Sanofi, which is a $500 million investment into a nationwide endocrinology practice focused exclusively on diabetes and diabetes management using connected wearables in the form of continuous blood glucose sensors, watches, phones, pumps, and even connected insulin in the form of connected insulin pens. This is really an ecosystem approach using a bunch of different wearables in order to not only monitor your condition, monitor and measure in a diagnostic way your glucose level, but also manage the treatment, the administration of the insulin, whether it be by pump or connected insulin pen. Next slide. And Amazon is very interesting. Amazon Care is a product that has been built for Amazon employees and dependents. It's a medical practice meant to bring the medical front door directly to the patient on their phone, and then bring as much as possible virtually to the patient. And when that fails, meaning they no longer can rely on virtual services and there's actually needs to be physical contact, then it actually coordinates appointments with other doctors and specialists, often virtual appointments, and if necessary, can send a nurse to the Amazon employee's home to acquire blood samples, take physiological measurements, etc. This is an example of what a virtual first front door is going to look like in the future as we see programs like this expanding, where the entire healthcare experience starts virtually and may stay virtually, essentially all the way through the experience with some support. And some of that support is going to come from other companies like Amazon, where their new pharmacy offering, for example, makes it easy to never leave home. You can get what you need from a durable medical equipment perspective or from a pharmaceutical perspective without leaving home. Next slide. So this is all being propelled in the US by an increase in reimbursement for remote monitoring. And remote monitoring has two components to it. The components related to the devices themselves and the connectivity of the devices, and the components from coaching and intervening with the patients and interpreting the data. All told, there's about $1,800 to $2,100 available per year per patient now in the US under Medicare for remote patient monitoring and chronic care management. This is a big chunk of money available to drive the adoption of wearables, and it's available today in the marketplace in the US. Next slide. And just to drive the point home, Kaiser has announced in September, late September of this year, the first virtual first health plan. This is a health plan where every interaction is meant to be handled virtually until it can't be. So whether it's your primary care interactions, urgent care actions, or specialty interactions, ordering imaging, ordering laboratory, et cetera, everything's handled virtually, and then with a minimal amount of bricks and mortar time being spent. This is launching in the Pacific Northwest in the United States in January. So this is one of the major health plans basically saying we're going completely virtual as much as we possibly can. Next slide. So all of these digital tools in terms of digital wearables are obviously an adjunct, an enabler to this virtual practice environment. And so you can see that these are synergistic with each other. You're going to see, and if you're interested in following more, look into Impact. It's a brand new organization. You can see the makeup of the organization here down below. This organization is meant to focus on virtual first practices. We're not talking about hospitals that have layered in telemedicine on top of their bricks and mortar. We're talking about entities that were designed from the ground up to be virtual in nature, and therefore are likely using wearables of one kind or another that are digitally connected as part of the therapy delivery, as part of the diagnostic services, as part of the monitoring, as part of the titration of drugs, et cetera. All of the examples I've shown you. This has got a great deal of interest, and we're tracking close to 300 different entities that are really now we can be called truly virtual first. Next slide. Thank you very, very much.
All right. Thank you, Don. I think if we were to pick up from where Don left off and start focusing a little bit about how soft goods and textiles can be a part of this process, at Moderncraft, we prefer to talk through experience and example. And so that's the approach we'll take. I think one of the most fundamental questions we get asked all the time is, how does an intimate apparel manufacturer create value in healthcare? And our answer is equally as straightforward. Who better than to know about sort of this physical real estate that we call our human body than a company that's really dedicated the last 30 years of our existence to building next to skin solutions. And as we talk about value, we see almost 3 intersection points. The first is as it relates to user experience, right? Trying to look at how you focus on human-centered design as a means of driving greater adoption and greater usage of these types of products. So a good example would be potentially a virtual reality device. Today, we see an increasing incidence of using virtual reality devices to treat everything from pain to PTSD. And the approach we've taken at Moderncraft is to think of the profile of this device and how we can make this more consumer friendly, so to speak. This has come in the form of us developing stretchable conductors capable of transferring high-speed data. And so we're starting to switch in a soft goods component and switch out plastics. It's come in the form of us thinking about how we approach head-worn accessories and trying to bring that material play into the profile of what a virtual reality device could be in the future. The second intersection point really comes in the form of data capture and transfer as you think about digital or sensor-driven products. We have a range of sensor arrays that utilize everything from fabric sensors to printed and embroidered means. And the second aspect is sensor placement. Today, we see a lot of wrist-based devices. Accuracy for certain products aren't necessarily optimized at the wrist. So how do we look at different integrations and different form factors to ensure data accuracy, which has an ultimate impact on health outcomes? The third and final intersection point is really, we come from the realm of having products that you throw in the wash for anything between 100 to 150 wash cycles. And so building products that are robust and durable and stand the test of time is sort of that second value intersection that we feel we're able to facilitate. To be clear, we're not the company that's positioning ourselves to say we're going to build the next digital therapeutic. But we are the company that feels that we are a key part of the puzzle to driving greater adoption and greater usage as consumers start to become increasingly concerned about their health. And as Don mentioned, start looking at solutions that are fit for purpose. If we thereafter take a step back almost and start thinking about the healthcare ecosystem at large, there are obviously numerous players with different incentives and different interests. And we've really tried to focus on working with stakeholders that we feel we can create new value with. Take telehealth as a category, right? Telehealth has been gaining momentum as a popular alternative to traditional care. This has been driven by the fact that we have a global aging population, there's an increasing in prevalence of chronic diseases, and there's an increasing awareness of the benefits of telehealth. Something that has really been surfaced in 2020, the year of the pandemic. And I think as you think about telehealth, remote patient monitoring is essentially a key delivery method within sort of this wider space. Wearable technology enables monitoring everything from blood pressure to glucose levels to respiratory conditions to UTIs from the comfort of your home. So a lot of work that we do as Moderncraft with telehealth companies is really building out remote patient monitoring solutions, both from the integration of sensors as well as looking at design for manufacture and scalability. And probably more importantly, looking at affordability, which has a wider implication to access. When you start thinking about remote patient monitoring, there's also this intersection with med device companies that are increasingly focused in this space. I think if you think about it from the perspective of the continuum of care, as a company, we've been very intentional about focusing on wellness and preventative needs, as well as recovery and management of certain conditions, while steering away from detection and treatment. We don't really necessarily feel playing in that space is synergistic to our capability. And so the approach we take is really partnering with best-in-class customer partners and value chain partners to afford that final product value proposition. If we were to double click a little bit, and so what you see on screen right now is a simplified version of our concept to commercialization process. I think what you'll start to see is that our capability, as we've spoken about before, really revolves around materials and e-textiles, wearability, durability, user experience testing, and sourcing, as well as manufacturing, both at a component level and a final product level, depending on what the product and use case might be. One of the things that we have really come to understand over the last couple of years is that it is definitely possible to look at conventional passive soft goods systems and bring that together with active systems, everything from conductives to sensors to functional technology platforms ranging from thermal regulation to visibility, and using each of these different technology platforms in different configurations where you have almost a hybrid system being born that's able to really start unlocking different product propositions. And to speak to you about this a little bit more, my colleague Vishwa will take you through the next couple of slides.
Thank you, Tiasha. If you look at the screen, this is what we call the Moderncraft periodic table. Like how different elements combine and create wonderful and useful materials and reactions in the regular periodic table. The Moderncraft periodic table is represents the ingredients that are necessary to create robust and as well as meaningful next to skin applications for healthcare and other verticals that we operate on. So some of these building blocks, of course, we inherited from our core soft goods business, like engineered knit, injection molding, form, lamination and bonding, so on and so forth. But we started out by building the missing ingredients that was necessary to create that smartness in the application. So I'm talking about the conductive pathways, the encapsulations and the interconnections that is necessary to build out a textile circuitry. But in doing so, we didn't also want to compromise on some of the core principles that we used in our core passive materials, which is to say that the robustness, the durability, the comfort, and the usability of these materials. We wanted to ensure that all the new smart materials that we developed also inherited those properties. So this helped us to build a set of technologies that were not only complementary with each other, but which the end users can use and adopt as they would use a non-tech integrated product. So thus becoming more invisible and ubiquitous in the end use. So from there, we essentially layered up, creating multiple active platforms. We have active heating, cooling, active compression, and sensing platforms, and other building blocks that can be used repeatedly and consistently to deliver great product. So in creating this whole Moderncraft periodic table of capabilities, a thing that we kept in mind, as Tiasha also alluded, is that you need to have in mind the manufacturability of each of these components and the scalability, so that you create not only a great product, but deliver it at great value as well. If we look at some examples, Tiasha, moving on to next slide. There are a couple of examples that I would try to illustrate to illustrate the use of the MS periodic table elements. So first example of a sensor embedded t-shirt, or more specifically talking about a remote monitoring garment that can be used in telemedicine. Here we can see that we use an engineering knit base and then use encapsulation, the interconnections and the conductive pathways to integrate sensors into that and to create a holistic, like a monitoring product. You can use printed sensors, polymer sensors, or even digital sensors like IMUs. But because we are all using engineered knit, we also have the capability to actually build in sensors through the knitting process, textile sensors that are built in to the product as well. We will use the conductive pathways and the textile circuitry to place the sensors at most appropriate locations in the body. And then we will use the variable modulus that is available to us from engineered knit to actually place them snugly on skin, so that you deal with accuracy as well as, like, noise management of from these sensors. And then the rest of the garment, we can have it comfortable, breathable, and allowing for your range of motion as well, so that you derive the best use and, like, have a product that can be used repeatedly and throughout the day as well. And all of this comes in a package that is completely maintainable as your regular product, so that you can detach the electronic control module and throw it in the washing machine for your repeated use. In the next example, if you look at something slightly different, we are looking at how we might use something like foam injection molding to create a structure where we can build in and protect electronics, sensors, and other active components, while having like a seamless apparel finish or a textile finish on the outside, so that the superior aesthetics of the textile can be combined with the protection that is offered by injection molding. The sensors can be used to monitor sleep, stress, or any other metric that you need to measure. The actual form factor, the combination of injection molding and textile, will provide the aesthetics and the comfort that will fit on multiple human form factors. So therein you will have a product that is not like a gimmicky technology gadget, but also something that, like, that fits into your home, the aesthetics of your bedroom, and of course, like, fit well and comfortably on you while you sleep. So you can easily extend this concept to say detect and manage concussions on a sport like rugby or NFL using appropriate headgears, or you can even create, like, form factors to embed oximeters and blood pressure monitors on a sleeve or a cuff, where you can measure multiple metrics and still have that, like, form factor which protects and houses the electronics. So the idea here is that you always create product that is user friendly, that is robust, and that you can really blend into your lifestyle at your home and work. With this, I think it's a good segue to hand over to Quentin to talk about DREEM and their ventures.
Yeah, thank you very much. So indeed, at DREEM, we are using advanced technologies, as you mentioned earlier, and neuroscience to develop tools that people actually would like or would love to use, and that have a clinical accuracy or medical grade accuracy. And we are focused on sleep, both for the analysis of sleep and for the improvement of sleep or treatment of insomnia. So next slide, please. So DREEM is a company that started in 2014. Today, we are a bit more than 70 employees based in New York, Paris, and Taipei. We've got a bit more than 40 patents. Our device is being used by more than 200 research labs in the world. And one of the big trends of what we did is that it has also been used by today more than 30,000 people in the world as a consumer device, allowing us both to iterate on our device and to gather the largest EEG database in the world that allow us to push the boundaries of sleep science and develop new features or new tools to understand and improve sleep. And we've got also a great quality of scientific advisory board with, for example, the Professor Emmanuel Mignot, who is the director of the Stanford Sleep Center, or Christophe Koch, who is the president of the Panelists Institute. And again, the thing what we do is merging these technologies that you mentioned, these wearable technologies that you mentioned, and sleep science or neuroscience. So next slide, please. Not talking about the device that we develop. So the main device that we develop is this headband. It's called the DREEM headband. So this is the version 2. We are also working on the version 3, actually, with Moderncraft. And for this DREEM 2 headband, you've got 6 dry EEG sensors that are placed 4 on the forehead, 2 on the back of the head. The sensors go through the skin and through the hair, sorry. And we are the only device today that is able to measure accurately sleep with dry EEG sensors over time. EEG is for electroencephalograms, that's the brain activity. We also measure the movement and breathing with accelerometer, the oxygen saturation with the pulse sensor, and with a microphone to also confirm the breathing and detect the breathing irregularities. And the device is a medical device in the US. So next slide, please. So indeed, we've got these 2 different applications. One that we call the DREEM Assistant that combines this measurement with advice that are personalized based on the data that we gather and with the help of a telehealth expert. And DREEM Labs, which is about sleep analysis and home-based measurement of sleep with the accuracy of what you can do in a sleep lab. So next slide, please. So about the DREEM Assistant, the solution is we've got the headband that measure accurately sleep. First, we've got a 7-night assessment of sleep to have a good understanding of the sleep of the person. There is an app that is associated with it. The app will provide advice to the patient or to the user. And this advice are the same advice that a sleep doctor would give to a patient. The idea there is that we are able to personalize the advice and to contextualize this advice or exercise based on the data that we see on sleep and the impact that what a person do has on its sleep. And we've got also coaching support with a telehealth expert, sleep expert, that people can reach and give also personalized advice. So today the solution is being used, as I said, by a bit more than 30,000 people globally. And I think the value of what we built is really the combination of what you see on this slide is that we've got a very high satisfaction from the user. So we mixed in some way the knowledge of consumer electronics device to make a device that people love to use and the rigor of clinical development. So that's for the next slide, please, where we see that we showed on real-world evidence on 1,300 patients that we succeed to decrease the ISI. So ISI is the Insomnia Severity Index, so it's a scale for insomnia. We succeed to decrease the ISI by 7.5 points, which is the same thing that you have in a face-to-face therapy with a doctor trained in cognitive and behavioral therapy for sleep. And we showed as well that not only people have a subjective feeling of improvement of their sleep, but we showed on the data that people indeed reduce their awakenings and reduce their sleep onset latency. Next slide, please. Another great publication that we had, which has been published in Sleep. So Sleep is a bit like the Nature of the Science for Sleep. That's a journal with the highest impact factor. We showed that our device compared to a polysomnography has the same result. So we had a study where 30 patients wore both a polysomnography, which is kind of a bulky device with wet EEG, cannula in the nose, ECG. So there was both the polysomnography and the dream band. And we asked 5 sleep experts to analyze the nights on the data on the polysomnography. And as they sometimes disagree, the sleep expert, we take the mean of these 5 sleep experts and we consider it as the truth of the gold standard. We then compared each expert on the data on the polysomnography to the truth, and we compared the results of our algorithm, embedded algorithm, based on the data of the dream band to the gold standard, which is again the consensus of the expert on the PhD data. And what we showed is that we ranked number 3 out of 6, meaning that our algorithm and headband were as precise as a polysomnography and a sleep expert to assess sleep. So this publication made a bit of noise in the small world of sleep, because for the first time, we showed that it was possible to have a device that people actually want to use, that can be used at scale and at home, not in a sleep lab environment, and that has the same accuracy as the gold standard, so polysomnography, and a doctor that would analyze it. So next slide, please. So after this publication, 4 sleep assessments, we have actually superiority to the 2 main solutions that exist to assess sleep. So the polysomnography, as I mentioned, which is not scalable, and the actigraphy, so it's all the device that you can wear on your wrist to assess sleep. And so we showed that we were the only solution who were able to be both scalable and accurate to assess sleep. So next slide, please. And based on that, we had, as I mentioned, a bit more than 200 research labs that are today using our device in their research to measure sleep. And we've been also having some partnership with pharma companies who are today using our device to assess the efficacy of their drugs or to assess the impact on sleep of their drugs. And our partnerships goes actually from a very broad range of disease, so autoimmune disease, narcolepsy, Parkinson, Alzheimer, asthma, or fibromyalgia. And it's kind of an interesting story for us, meaning that we started to develop this device as a consumer device that would help people sleep better. And we saw on the road that the validation that we had and the publications that we had make us gain traction from the major sleep or health actors in the world. And today we are having this company on both legs, one leg developing a device that people want to use and love to use, and one more healthcare leg, which is helping either to develop drugs or in the longer term to diagnose patients much earlier. Just one example to conclude. I think the most interesting one there is for Parkinson's disease. For Parkinson's disease, you have a very particular biomarker, which is called brain behavioral disorder. It's movement that occur during REM sleep, which are not supposed to occur. And so when people are dreaming in REM sleep, some people are moving and they're not supposed to move. So they are living their dream with movements. And that particular biomarker is actually a predictive biomarker for Parkinson, which means that if we detect small movement in a person that's during its paradoxical sleep or REM sleep, we can be sure at 90% that this person is going to have a Parkinson in 5, 10, or 15 years. And so that's for us, that would be for us a very strong application of what we do, being able to diagnose patients with Parkinson very early, which would allow to have new treatments that are currently under development that can slow down the evolution of Parkinson. So that's an overview of what we are doing at DREEM, and I think a good example of how these wearable technologies can be used as a solution, either a consumer solution or more medical solutions. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, Quentin, and just congratulations on putting together such an extraordinary technology and solid work. Thank you for that. As you can imagine, we have some tremendous questions coming through from the audience, and it'd be great to get to some of those. We've got about 15 minutes remaining for the panel. So if you're in the audience, just please do keep shooting them over, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And then also remember to please link in with any of the panelists. Obviously, as industry leaders, they're all very interested in hearing from you and networking with you. So feel free to follow up with them on LinkedIn for whatever reason, or contact Tiasha or Don or Quentin or Vishwa on this on the emails that you see in front of you as well. First of all, Don, back to the top, we've had a question come in from the audience about the privacy and security settings on these sorts of technologies, and the audience member is wondering about this this and the platform. How is it contained, and is it something that can scale nicely? You know, if we're talking about 10,000 units a month or something like that or more, how do these platforms and these technologies scale with privacy?
Sure. So the biggest challenge with private security in these systems around the world is scaling in a way that matches the privacy and security requirements to each of the region's local requirements. So Europe is slightly different than the US, slightly different than other parts of the world. That creates a level of complexity for global scaling that is difficult to manage, difficult to oversee, and difficult to keep track of. So we're starting to see some solutions evolve that are platform solutions for hosting clinically regulated healthcare solutions that are subject to privacy and security requirements. Accenture has one for the clinical research arena. A company called Bright Insight has a platform for the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. And these are all platforms designed to accommodate different iterations of the same software, different iterations of the same devices, but maybe they're different because of language concerns, local privacy regulations, local security regulations. And so you may have a single product that actually has several hundred different iterations of the same product as it's managed around the world. So this, and then on top of this, you have global storage capabilities through cloud services like AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure that are all either already designed to support local and regional privacy and security, or are rapidly getting to the point where they actually are able to do that on a global basis. AWS is probably the most advanced at this point.
That's really good to know. And I know I've sat on some boards of companies that are global and in the health information side of the world, and with things like GDPR, it's good to know that Moss has this covered, and then certainly those sorts of extensions are critical. Yeah, I think one of the questions I have for you, Tiasha, is around Moss and then getting into the wearable space, and by extension the healthcare space. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that journey as well.
Sure, Stan. I think the answer to that is probably twofold. I think if you look at the digital transformation that's taking place in the healthcare realm in general, we're seeing incumbents from everyone from providers to hospital systems start to invest in digital, but we are also seeing non-traditional players start to enter the space due to the opportunities that are sort of resultant, right? We've spoken about Amazon and sort of their foray in Amazon Care. They're likely to reveal their full-scale electronic medical system to care for employees soon. We've seen the likes of Google acquire Fitbit, so we anticipate sort of a range of fitness trackers to come. And we've seen other companies ranging from Apple to Comcast start investing in this space. And I think as MAS as a company saw this digital transformation take place, we saw for ourselves an opportunity as well to be a part of that equation. And so it's been driven with that lens in mind, looking at opportunities from a business perspective and monetization perspective. The second answer to that is really, as a company that has really focused on apparel and textiles, we're all about looking at extending that apparel S-curve. And we see the future of clothing is likely to be intelligent and sentient. And as we contemplated sort of what adjacent businesses we wanted to go after, we really started thinking about what products could we build that had purpose behind it, right? And purpose in terms of helping improve health outcomes, but also helping to facilitate greater access to the world at large. And so I think that's sort of the second rationale for coming into this space. And a lot of thought went into how we tackle it, and some of the conversations we have to date still continue to evolve. Obviously, overnight technology is coming to being, which renders stakeholders redundant. So it is a work in progress and something will continue to evolve as we go along.
That's brilliant. No, thank you for that. And that makes a lot of sense. And certainly the synergy is there as to why Moss would be getting into this. And, from the technical side, as technology is improving, I think, one of the questions coming in from the audience as well is around the kind of future of what's going on. And Vishwa, maybe you could help us understand that a little bit more from the Moderncraft side, from the MAS, the Moss side. What is the future of this? Where do you see this going over the next several years?
Yeah, so I mean, it's exciting times. There's a lot of development happening, both in terms of the software development as well as the electronics miniaturization and creating advantages in electronics as well. One of the key areas to tackle probably would be powering, because powering has always been a roadblock for many wearable applications. People have to have large batteries on their body. We need to charge them multiple times. So this affects both the accuracy and the continuous monitoring that might be required for a telehealth application, for example. So unlocking powering technologies has been one of the key focuses for us. So we have been working with several partners in the US and Europe as well as in Asia to develop powering systems that are robust, flexible, and very lightweight, that can be incorporated into devices such as the headbands that Quentin spoke about, or any sort of miniaturize even the disposable sensor patches that Don alluded to earlier. So powering is very critical, and so we are investing time and effort into developing power sources that unlock certain capabilities. And then we are also looking at multiple form factors for telemedicine. So we understand that having a smart garment is probably not the only form factor, and that is not feasible for all sorts of applications. So for certain applications, smart wristables or sleeves are helpful, and then there are applications that require more of a disposable sort of a patch sort of a form factor. So investing into how do we make these form factors mass manufacturable, cheap, and accessible to all parts of the world. So that is sort of one of the areas that we are working on. And then we are also building in a lot of sustainability material into all of this, so we are looking at circularity, we're looking at how to make things modular so that you can take them apart and recycle appropriately electronics and the textile separately, and then find our way back into the whole manufacturing ecosystem as well. So those are a few of things, Stan, that we are
That's fantastic. Okay, so that does make sense, and just seeing the development and the speed in which these technologies are becoming smaller, faster, better, cheaper, et cetera, is extraordinary. There's another question from the audience, and Quentin, this might be best for you, and it really is around the process of understanding how to build these wearable devices, and whether you're using certain metrics and how you're targeting the user in terms of filtrating criteria that you would use when you build these sorts of form factors for wearables. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, for sure. Well, so that's an interesting work, merging a lot of different skills, because you need to have under the same roof or the same place, or working together at least, the person who is developing the electronics, the person who is working on the design, the person who is working on the materials, etc., etc. And then you've got these design sessions where you need to be able to know what, if you achieve successfully your technical, what's the product, and then you make some prototypes of what the product would look like, and you make this prototype test by tens of people or hundreds of people, depending. For example, in our case, we had, for the very first product that we did, we ran a beta version of the product with 500 people. And we had a product that technically was good, but that possibly was not ready for mass production, but we still decided to run this beta version. And we had 500 people that we selected among 8,000. And these 500 people paid for the product. And they spent 1 year giving us feedback about what we should change in the product. And at the end of this year, we gave them for free the next version of the product that we would have developed. So I think there is no real simple answer, but to make it short, it would be have everybody that has the skills under the same, in the same room and test it a lot back until you've got a device that people actually like to use and love to use.
So that does really help us out a lot, Quentin. That makes a lot of sense, and that obviously it's a rigorous process, and it's one that's well defined, and you know, I think that does help out a lot. And so there's a question from the audience here as well. Tiasha, Vishwa, you guys can jump ball for this one and take either whoever wants it. And it's around this this question that we see all the time at HitLab, because we work with the World Bank, the World Health Organization, the UN, a lot of multilateral agencies working with a lot of the world's poorest countries and people. And that is, this is incredible technology at scale. We know that the history of medical technology and just the history of any technological diffusion is one through first charging some people more money for it, like a plane flight to LA from New York originally cost $10,000 in 1920. And now it's $300 if you're willing to wear a hazmat suit on the airplane. And so the idea now is that how does this get to 8 million people? Do you see a future where these sorts of technologies are worn by people all over the world in 10 or 20 years? Like we used to pay $10,000 for flat screens, now we pay, you know, $500 or whatever. Is that kind of your dream as well for this?
I mean, of course it is, right? It's the ultimate goal. And I think with everything in life, it's a stage-gated process. If we think about, you know, the first wave of wearables, I'm sure you can all relate. It came out at sort of $2,000, $3,000, and it was just the early adopters and a very specific segment of the consumer population that was even able to afford that, right? We are a couple of generations on from that. I think MAS's first product in the wearable tech space, just to give you an appreciation at a manufacturing cost, was something in the region of $150. This is now for a basic product in the $40 to $50 range. So you're seeing almost a halving of price on sort of some typical apparel products over a 3-year period. So I think with scale and greater adoption comes greater opportunities for cost rationalization. And as all of the companies in this ecosystem learn more and build certain muscle across design, product development, and manufacturing, I think those cost efficiencies are going to come about. It's interesting that this question came up because one of our projects this year has been, as much as we've continued to focus on US and Europe as our primary markets, with the oncoming of, you know, the pandemic and all the needs around that, was to actually develop a remote patient monitoring product for South Asia. We come from Sri Lanka, and so it's really important to us that we are servicing consumer populations in the communities in which we work and operate as well. So hopefully we'll have news for you on that front in the new year.
Looking forward to it. And with that, we're at the top of the hour. We want to certainly respect your schedules and everyone else involved at the conference, at the summit here. But on behalf of the HitLab program management team and all the HitLab leadership team members in our community, thank you very much, Tiasha. It's been wonderful, and Vishwa, and certainly Don and Quentin. You're all doing great work, and we really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to updates next year at the HitLab Summit 2021 and hearing good things. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having